Hey guys, I finally fixed up the fonts loading for Windows exe files. Yeah, it works really well. If you notice, the fonts default to Arial, but I've got two fonts here. They both look the same. The white is PBO bold, and the green one, cycle occlusion culling, that's in what's called Future Earth. It actually looks the same, but it's slightly different. Now, when you're running this on your Windows machine, to actually access the fonts, it actually has to be loaded into your Windows itself for the fonts to show up here. So then it can be selected, typically this way. But so if it's not loaded onto your computer, it won't come up on this list. But the thing is, when you run this game on another computer without the installed fonts that you're using, it won't show up at all. I'll show you that on another computer in a minute. So the problem I had to do is work out, we need to get these fonts into the system so it can load from a file. And you can create this file. I tried about 2 or 3 different ways. None of them were working particularly well. They were working. I had a couple of other methods I was using. One's called Irelic Font Maker. That didn't work too good. There was a couple of other programs. I mean, Font Maker, it works basic, but this one that came with Irelic version 1.73. It's quite a few versions actually, but the main one under Tools, Irelic Font Tool. There's the old font tool and the new font tool. It's just code you can compile it. It just basically compiles it back into a exe file called fonttool.exe, and there's the necessary DLL file. So it's pretty old stuff, but actually this one works really well. Both the old font tool and the new font tool are very similar. The old font tool was alright, but I think the new one's just a bit better. If you want to access these fonts when you're loading a game in Windows, I don't think in Mac, I'm not sure about Mac whether it actually works in Macintosh. I don't think so. You can try it. But anyway, in Windows games it does work. It works quite nicely, quite fast actually. So no longer using the media folder. Now it's always under data, fonts. So, and that goes with the lens flare as well. So now the lens flare, it's all under data images. So it has to be, I've changed it. It's because it's suited to my game. I'll use data, a folder called data in my game. So, and it has to be fixed. I could not have it so that you can put in various directories. It had to be fixed in that order, because when it loads the fonts, it does it. It's very early on. It loads all the fonts before it runs any code that you're allowed to run later on through the JavaScript API. So in other words, you can't access and change the fonts when it first loads up unless you fix the directory. So here's the fixed directory. There's numerous attempts to change the code on all sorts of different, you've got 2D overlay nodes, you've got GUI environment files, you've got then you've got your Windows 32 font manager. So this is where I edited it eventually. After numerous attempts, I found this was the best spot to put it. So what's it doing? It's saying on first load up, check if you got the font in memory. It's in an array called fonts. Get the font. False means don't load it if it can't find it. So first you just look for it. If it can't find it, then I'm telling the system to, okay, now we're going to try and load the font from a file. Yes, actually on start, I don't even know if this is actually necessary. I think it only runs on start. I'd have to check that. But anyway, so what this does is on start, at least it does work. It creates the directory name, adds the name of the face. The face is the font type. So in this case will be, for this one, it's called 2 words, Future Earth. There's a space in the middle, that's fine. You can put spaces. Capitals or lowercase or uppercase actually doesn't matter. It gets made lowercase later on anyway. Doesn't seem to make any difference. Adds the size. So out size here, it's actually that 10 in front of it. Just grabs that number. Now that number is ignored later on. It's not used at all when I'm loading custom fonts, which is what I'm doing here. It's irrelevant. It's basically adjusts the name of the font. The size and the name go together. So that's how it works it out. So with Windows fonts, you've got the same font, and you've got lots of different variations of size here. But in loading a font, it's all one size. You can't have multiple size fonts in the one file. It's just one size only. So you have to have separate files for each size. So in other words, data fonts, this is size 10 for Future Earth, that's size 16 for PBO Bold. If I wanted to say Future Earth 12, I'd have to create a new file. So, but another thing is also it loads an XML file. So this font tool does create both a PNG and the XML file. So if I go create font, run that, you have it brings up this pretty ordinary looking window, but it actually works. That's the main thing. So now what you really want to create, so for example, I want to create, we'll go Future Earth 12, Future Earth 12, let's try that. So here it is. So make sure you select alpha. You don't make it's 100%. Otherwise, it'll have a black background, and when it loads the font, it'll have black edges around the font. It won't look good. So get rid of that. Put the alpha. AA is anti-aliasing. I find you don't use it, don't need it. For this one, it's bold for my font, but yours will be different. Now, this is the size of the file that gets created from the font. Now, this is critical. So Future Earth. This needs to be called Future Earth 10. Capitals or not doesn't seem to make any difference. Space, Earth, and then the number. Oh, 12, sorry, I want. So here's the font size. Make sure you change that to 12. Now, that's just leave by default, character set. Don't change that. So I'll see if it fits within that size. If it's not, I can change this size. So bitmap, no, I want to just create a PNG is fine. Maybe the bitmap will be alright. I don't think bitmaps don't have transparency, so I don't think I want that. Alright, so now I've got to find that the Future Earth. Now, this is not sorted correctly. It's just like random stuff all over the place. So in other words, I find my stuff I want is typically down the bottom. So look at that Z, then N, and F. It's all over the place, the actual order. But anyway, you'll find it eventually. Now it's got PBA, there's Future Earth regular. Now that regular part is actually the type of font, it's not the name, so it's just Future Earth. So there's 12, size 12. Okay, we're going to create that and see if it fits in within the, okay, font created. This says something about anti-aliasing, not too worried about that. Now that's looks like it's fitted in pretty completely fine in that one file. You could probably go smaller size file if you wanted, because otherwise it's only gone down to this level. You've got all this way down here that you could theoretically fill it. Let me just try it just out of interest. Width, let's change just out to see what happens if we do that. Yeah, see, you've changed the size of the file that you're creating. That would probably still be fine. Probably still be fine. Let's just now we can just save it. Didn't need the other thing to see what's happened. So there you go, bitmap font salad. Even though it's a PNG, it's saved as bitmap type. So okay, so that's how you create it. So it creates the what you want in the folder, the same folder. There is Future Earth 12, and it adds a 0 at the end of it for the PNG for some reason. I don't know if you need to do that, but that's what it does for now. So I can cut that, put that under fonts folder. So now I've got Future Earth 12 if I want to use it later on for whatever reason. So that XML file, if you open that, it'll then, it's telling it to say, okay, here's the file I want, Future Earth 12 with the 0 png.png, and this is all critical information. That's why we laid that the XML file works really well. No other method I've tried works as good as this. This works really well. Okay, so that's that done. So you've created all the fonts you want that match the same name that you're using in Windows. So here, Future Earth, and just put the number, what size font you want by default at 10. Put that in the name. So in other words, this size at the start is irrelevant from loading fonts from here on in using custom fonts. You put it at the end of the name. So Future Earth 10 in this case, which is what I've already got there. Future Earth 10 loads the XML file, and then that will tell it to load the Future Earth 10 0 with a 0 there, .png. You might be able to get rid of that extra 0 and just have them the same. I'm not sure. I haven't tried that yet. I might try that. But there it is there. It's saying that's the file to load. We can try that later. We'll see what happens. Yeah, so had a lot of trouble getting the directory to work in the game engine, because there's so many different complexities with C++, different text formats. They're not all the same, and they don't talk to each other. They just don't want to cooperate with each other at all. They cause problems. So in other words, I had to convert this, which is called string C format. So it comes in as C8. That's a different format. Gets converted here to string C. Seems to be able to do that. Take that and just give it to me in string C. That seems to work. But when I'm creating my own directory of stuff here in string C, it seems to want to. You have to convert it into C8. Why? Because when it runs it, get font, that's actually looking for a C8 format. So there's all these complications of different formats. So I had to convert it. So I had to just by luck, this was turned out to be the right one. Even though it says convert AeroLeak W to C8. Well, that's not W. You can actually have string W. That's another format, of course. But anyway, for some reason, string C works with string W and able to convert it into C8 format. So this this function can run correctly with the C8 format, which is that type of format. Yeah, so anyway, just playing around with things. This is just one of those few things that you have to just keep playing with it until it works. It's a pain in the butt. Anyway, it took me a long time to get this far, but now what it does is for every single font that you have in your CopperCube editor game and save the exe, it'll then match off exactly the font size and the font type if you've got it created within this directory. Under where the game is held, the exe, you've got a folder called data fonts, and the name, the two words typically, it could be one word, and the font size in the name. So yeah, so the TTF fonts in Windows obviously have all the different sizes in the one file, whereas this way you have to have a separate file for each font size. So there's Future Earth 10 size there, so that'll work. Alright, so I'll save that, and I'll run this on another. So I run that now. You'll see that it runs as you'd expect, just as you'd expect, but you don't know if this is actually loaded, the font, or it's just using the Windows default font that's already loaded into your Windows already. You won't know, it won't tell you, there's no messages, you can't actually debug that type of information. I've tried it, but you won't be able to. So you'll have to actually go and run it on another computer that doesn't have those fonts installed. That's really the only way I've found a way to do it. So by default, you'll find that this is actually just Windows fonts. So if I was to, for example, change the name of that to whatever, so it can't load anything in there under that same directory, you'll find it'll still work just the same because it's not loading that from there anyway. This is the Windows font. So PBO bold in the top where it says outer and inner, and cycler collision culling, that's Future Earth font of Windows. So I'm going to download this into USB, take it to another computer, and run it on that has fresh install of Windows, and you'll see that it actually now works. So just I'll have to record that on another phone, so just a second. Okay guys, I'm on a different computer at the moment. I've just changed the name of the folder, data fonts 2, so it can't load anything in there. And I've got the app exe, and I'm just going to run it in debug mode so you can see any error messages that way. And you can see that cycler occlusion culling in green, that's not loading the correct font because it's unable to load it. And there's no error messages. Oh, it's out there. There's no error messages because this runs, the font loading up runs so early that I don't know, for some reason that the debug messages don't actually even show anything. And you notice that the outer and the inner, that font hasn't loaded. So, and that one is defaulted to some small font as well. So it was tried to load it and it couldn't. So it's just defaulted to some basic Arial font. So now if I go back to data, put that back to how it's supposed to be, fonts, and run the game, it should work. There you are, it has worked. It definitely does work. So this is on a freshly installed Windows on this PC, and yeah, it's a dodgy monitor, don't worry about that. And you can see that it totally does work. Whatever font I have selected on my other computer, it then loads that. If you've got the font sitting there installed of the same name, it'll then load it correctly. So yeah, it totally works. So you can see outer and inner, and this one. So that's PBA bold, that's Future Earth. It looks the same, I know, but it's actually different. So they've correctly loaded, so that's good. So this totally works. And it actually worked quite fast. I couldn't notice any speed difference. So anyway, so it's nice. No major problems there. So any fonts you create in your Windows game, and you have created the fonts of the same name in the correct location, it will then run correctly. So it's good. Now what about if you don't like this extra 0 in front of it? Different formats, so you can have the same name because it's different formats. That's Future Earth 10 PNG. What about, so then you'll have to change this XML file, so you have to edit it because it's looking for Future Earth 100. See if that works. File, save. Just looks better, doesn't it? That's all. Let's see if that works. It does work. Okay, so you don't actually have to have an extra 0 there. You can just edit that manually, remove it so it just looks cleaner. Yeah, so that totally works. That's nice. So that's method number 1. Now this is getting the fonts into the system to run correctly. Now obviously that's the normal way of doing it, because if you're doing a lot of text in your game, you're probably going to want to use a font in a system font to reduce the amount of memory. You probably don't want to use just lots of text, lots of image files to show the text. I mean, theoretically you could do that, but because you use a lot more memory, all those different images, if you wanted to replace a font system to an image-based font system, you'd have a lot more images if you had a huge number of text. But using images is actually the best way, in my opinion, because when you resize Windows, if you're actually making a game and selling it, the fonts will go out of whack. So watch this, I'll resize the font, press 1, that's 800 by 600. See how the fonts are stuffed up now? Doesn't matter what font type, they get resized, and they have to, in other words, if you're making a game that you can resize the resolution, then you're going to have to recalculate the correct new font size and load that up and put that in Exchange. I mean, you can do it, that's doable, but I think there's a better way. Actually, I'll show you that in a minute. So I'll just put that back. So back to, went from, I went to 800 by 600, now I'm back at 920 by 1080. Is that right? No, this monitor doesn't have, I don't think, no, it's not 1920 by 1080 monitor. Anyway, yeah, anyway, it's a bit weird, but either way, that's the standard resolution for this monitor. I think it's like 15 by something. It's not 1920 by 1080. Yeah, it's a test monitor, that's why it looks dodgy. So anyway, so resizing screen resolutions, it's not the monitor resolution that I'm changing using the API that I created. Well, it's just hooking into the existing stuff in the game engine. It's actually just changing the resolution internally of the game engine itself. It's running at. Okay, so yeah, all right, so that works. That's nice. Okay, so those font loads happen on startup only, but if you want to change it after, like when you change resolution, you can do that. So this cycle occlusion colouring, this part here down the bottom, which is just Arial font for now because that's what I've set it up at. If you want to change any fonts during the game dynamically, you can do that too. So I've got a little API for that. So I press F, it'll then load the font, even gives you an error message now. So it says, yeah, it says 16 default Future Earth 10. It's actually, the font size is 10, not 16. So that 16 in front of it for now can be just ignored from henceforth. And just look at the name of it to get the right size. Yeah, there's no workaround for that at the moment. I probably could adjust the name of the font to put 10 instead of 16. I don't know if that makes a big difference though, because the name has the font size anyway in it. So just remember this, that's basically irrelevant, the 16 now, the very first two numbers. Yeah, and it's matched the same one above it. Now, obviously I could change that to any font and I'll just load that in. Yeah, so that works too. I'll show you the API for that in a second. Okay, I'm back on my computer. I want to change this one to show you that I want to change the font to Future Earth 16. That's Future Earth 10. But if I want to make this one the same font as that but a lot bigger, you obviously have to have the font saved. So I've just created this font, Future Earth 16, and it links back to Future Earth 16 PNG there. So I've just took away the 0 because I don't really need that. Works fine without that. Now I've got the API for that. I'll show you. So that's Stats 15 2D overlay. So when I press F, gets the node, and then this is my new API. Set node font. So that since you need the node, then you just put in the text of the name of the font plus the size in one word. Spaces are okay. Capitals are lowercase. It doesn't seem to make any difference. And this one here is just reading back the font name after I've updated it. That's all that's doing, is printing off the font name from the getCnode property. Okay, so I'll run that and show you that now. So when I run that with the API, I press F. So that one there, cycle occlusion colouring, the one at the bottom, that's got that's a lot bigger now, and it says up on the top 16 default Future Earth 16 normal false. So that it's just some basic generic text data, but the main thing there is the name Future Earth 16. That's the actual size. The very first two numbers, 16, is just irrelevant, frankly, for this purpose. It's just the name and the font size is all in one, in other words. So you can see that totally works. Yeah, so the size of the fonts will have its own file, in other words. So you have to create separate XML and PNG files for each size that you want to use to cater for the change in resolution. So if I was to push F now and then change the resolution, you see that everything changes 800 by 600. I change it back again. We'll go back the way it was. Yeah, you'll have to make adjustments for the size of the fonts if you're having a game that can change resolutions. But I've actually got a better way, in my opinion. It's a lot simpler, which is it's not using fonts anymore. You can use this, and this is good, but there is another way that you can use image-based fonts, not text-based fonts now. So now it's all based on images. So in other words, we don't drawing any text. We're going to be loading an image instead. Okay, so this is GIMP. I just use GIMP, not Photoshop. So what I've created here is a list of text that I would like to show just for a demo from 1 to 32. So I got up to 32 lines of text in the one file. You know, you can make as many as you want. I've made it so it has to be a factor of 4. So either 4, 8, 16, you know, like 24 or 32 lines it needs to be, so it can divide it up exactly, evenly, and also the top and the bottom of the the black edges has to be line up exactly. So there's a little bit of a gap above that text, and there's a little bit of a gap, pretty much exactly the same at the bottom of that text. There's a gap up top, and there's a gap down the bottom. The last gap down the bottom is not as critical as it's the last line anyway. So what I've done is just put this text in, typed it in manually using the fonts I want with the black background. Then once I've done that, then I can come in here and merge down. So it's all one file now, and then I can get rid of the black background because you don't want to show the black background. So here I'll go black. Okay, and then when I save that out, I get an image that looks like that. PNG, it just looks like that. Yeah, so with all the stuff on it, it's actually a transparent background. I'll load that into CopperCube. So now I'm actually just going to tell the system to select what line of data I want to put. So instead of a fonts, it's an image-based font. In other words, it's what I call it at least. So I've loaded that in. I'll just select that. It'll look weird. Yeah, here it'll look weird, but in reality, when it shows up in the game, it'll look totally fine. Okay, so it'll look like that, but it'll run fine because on start you'll have a new API that you can use that I've created that looks up a particular line from that list. That's why I've got 32 lines because it's evenly divided by 4. So I've got a new API, set line 2D. So 2D overlay, I'm setting the line from that file. It's per node basis. So there's the node. I'm telling it what line number to show, how many lines in total, and how many total lines in the whole file, so it can divide it up correctly. So I just want to show the first line, in other words. So the first line, only that one line, not 2 lines or more, and there's 32 lines in that file. So when I run that, it'll automatically update. So there it is there, d-mo test text. That's just matches the bit of just what the same thing there. It's just showing that line of data. So you can see that if you created this file correctly, evenly spaced, and the exact number, like 4, 8, 16, 32 lines or whatever, I'll show the last line. You'll see that line, it shows perfectly as well. So line number, let's do 31. Line number 31. So you can see. I only want to show one line. There's 32 lines in total, but I just want to show here line 31. So let's run that, and that'll show it perfectly. There it is, line 31, demo test text. Now the good thing about image-based fonts, that's what I'm going to call it, is when you resize the screen, so you check it out, exactly the same. There's no difference. Whereas when you're using normal fonts, the font size is out of whack. So that's now resolution, screen resolution. It's not monitor resolution, it's still the same, but the screen resolution 800 by 600. And when I change it back again, so the only difference with the image-based fonts is the resolution of the image is a bit lower quality, you can see. So when I put it back now, it's exactly the same. It's just the quality is better, that's all. Unless I'm missing something, that seems to be the best way to do it. Okay, so the frames per second is a bit lower than normal. That's because of the screen recording software. So you can see that totally works. You don't have to make any adjustments. You can have any resolution you want, and it automatically adjusts because it's not a fixed size font. It's an image. It's image-based font. I reckon that's the best way, frankly. It's just so much easier. So what if you want to have 2 lines of text? Well, I actually haven't even tried that yet. Let me try that. I have to make it wider, so that's position, the height. Let's just make that 24. Let's just double that and see what happens, and we'll change the when it first loads up. Obviously you can change this anytime during the game as well using the same thing. We'll change that to line 30, and we'll do 2 lines, so line 30 and 31, and that stays fixed based on how you created it. Okay, let's try that. Look at that, both lines show up perfectly. Now, if you're not happy with the distance between the 2 lines of text, you'd have to change the way the file was created, obviously, in your GIMP software, whatever it is. You should be able to do that. But anyway, you can see that, and I'll change the resolution. Oh, look at that, it's exactly the same. It's because, I suppose that's because my screen monitor resolution has not actually changed, it's only the screen resolution. But anyway, there you can see the difference. The image-based text thing works perfectly. And probably is what I'll use in my game, because it's just mucking around with different font sizes when you're changing resolutions. It's such a drama. You've got so many different monitor sizes out there, new ones coming all the time, you know, with much higher resolutions. I think the image-based one is frankly going to be better. But I'll let you have a play with it. See you in the next one. Cheers.